This is a Geek Leader podcast, and I'm your host, John Rauda. This show is all about helping us grow as leaders, become better technologists, and improve our lives both at work and at home. I hope you enjoy the show and learn a lot. Welcome to a Geek Leader podcast. I'm your host, John Rauda. And if you could, please do me a favor and take a moment and leave a rating and review in whatever podcast player you're listening to this on, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, doesn't matter. I would greatly appreciate it. And that feedback really helps get other listeners to the show. Also, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you feel so inclined, you can go to geekleader.com/tip and donate to the show. Thanks so much. All right, Geek Leaders, today I'm honored to have Ollie on the show. He is an engineer turned entrepreneur, which is pretty awesome, very similar to some of the paths that I took in my career as well. So hopefully we'll have a lot in common to talk about today. But he's also the founder of Wednesday, which we're going to talk about in detail today. Anyway, with all that being said, Ollie, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, John. I'm really excited to talk to you and your community.
Yeah, if you don't mind, just tell the audience a little bit about your background and how you got into engineering and entrepreneurship.
Sure. So my name is Ali. I'm the founder and CEO of Wednesday. I actually come from an engineering background. I've been building software all my life. And the journey of how I got into doing Wednesday is I think it was always meant to be. So I was actually running another venture before this, which was we were trying to build a fintech product. And this was somewhere around the 2016, 2017 timeframe. And we had to work with a bank. We just couldn't build this product without working with a bank. And in that process, I realized that getting simple things would just take weeks and weeks of just back and forth and effort. I remember there was a point where we were consuming simple APIs just to do like a KYC, handshake. And the API responses weren't standardized, and just a simple change would just take weeks. And I realized that, IT is just broken. And just as founders, when we were building that product, we faced so many challenges just getting tech off the ground while having to handle, distribution and marketing and fundraising and all of those things. And I decided that no matter what happens with this company, the next one is just going to focus on software development and how I can make that convenient. And somewhere around 2019, 2020, that venture, I just delved into Wednesday, and that's how Wednesday was born.
So what is it that you guys specialize in, like when it comes to engineering and software development, things that make life easier for us?
Yeah, so Wednesday has 3 areas of expertise, which is data engineering, product engineering, and applied AI. These through 4 services, which is launch, amplify, catalyze, and control. And each of these services is suited for a business at a specific growth stage. So for example, launch is suited for businesses that are moving from MVP or to PMF. And amplify is suited to those which are above. And the rest 2 are for enterprises. But our focus for 2025 is just launch. We want to work with more startups, help them find PMF.
Okay. And how do you do that? Like what would be an example process like going through the project?
Yeah, so I think so I'll talk about launch, but I think the idea here is that product innovation really happens at the intersection of 3 fields, which is product management, engineering, and design. Now, each of these 3 fields themselves have a lot of moving pieces. So technology changes, frameworks change, markets shift, user behaviors change. And the way that and I think the craft itself changes. There are new ways of doing the same thing. So we want to start by identifying people who are actually passionate about building great software. So it has to start with craft, and then it has to move to practice, where you are at the cutting edge, where you have teams that are constantly learning what are the new things in each of these areas. And the last stage is just focusing on customer experience and service. So let's say you're a startup founder, you have a lot of things to worry about. Tech should be the last problem that you need to think about, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's the opposite of what actually happens, um, especially with non-tech founders. That's the problem that we're trying to solve. So it's marrying skill with processes to create a practice.
Mm. So are most of your clients then non-tech founders?
That's right. So yeah, most of the clients are non-tech founders.
Mhm.
It's not like we don't work with tech founders. We do work with them. But the ones that we work with, they realize that as a founder, they need to do a lot of other things.
Yeah.
So they may have a tech background, but they do realize that as a founder in this role, they need to do different things, which may change with time. So it may be fundraising at like an early stage, or it may be distribution or marketing, or it may be figuring out a parallel product. It may be n number of things that are going on, but
Mhm.
um, they are the ones who are able to sort of make themselves not to worry about tech. You know, they're able to separate that. Some people uh, just want to be involved, but I don't think that's the ideal customer for Wednesday service.
Yeah, I can think back when, so my background's also engineering, software development, and I can go back to
Right.
1999 and 2000. Me and two guys that I went to college with, we started our own little business, and I remember thinking that it was just going to be, writing code all day, and not realizing that
Mhm.
like part of an entrepreneur and part of starting your own business, a big part was sales, marketing, and realizing that like, oh, I need to step out of tech if I want this to be
Yeah.
successful, and not think about that and think about the actual running of a business. And,
Right.
it was a total mind shift that I didn't quite, prepare myself for.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, in today's market, things have changed furthermore, right? Because
Mhm.
no matter what area you touch, there are n number of competitors probably doing the same thing or sort of similar. So you're competing with more people. Um, you are competing with um, sort of attention as well on different medium. I think marketing itself has become very, very challenging. So I think the role of the founder has become more difficult than ever before.
Yeah.
And we're just trying to sort of ease that a little bit um, by making sure that the product development is happening on time and on track, meeting, you know, I think the business, meeting the needs of the business at that particular time.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I definitely think that's, one of the areas that a lot of, entrepreneurs can definitely need some help on. When you talk about like, launch and, really focusing in on taking an idea and turning it into a product, um,
Mhm.
how many people are customers that you meet with have their actual product really like honed in, or how many people are it's just more of an
Mm.
idea that they need to flesh out and get help with?
So I'd like to take a step back. So
Sure.
Launch works with founders who've already got some MVP going on,
Okay, so they've already
right? So
gotten something out there.
they've got something. I think that's
Mm.
that's what founders need to do. They need to identify um, some some way of finding a small group of users to want what they have made or come up with, and are willing to pay for it. Um, and they can build it themselves. They can hire somebody to do that for them. They can use no-code tools. There are n number of options that are available. I think founders are quite scrappy and they can do these things on their own. We help them go from MVP to PMF. And the way that launch works is that we always we always start launch with what we call a sprint zero, which is primarily like a planning phase where founders work with us, talk to us about how they got to where they are now and where they want to be.
Mhm.
Um, and this is done through like a series of workshops that we do with them. And it helps us identify, or it helps us create like a product roadmap for them. And many founders have actually used this to go and fundraise further, saying that, I need X number of dollars allocated for product development, and here is why. Um, Along with that, Sprint Zero also gives them the technical architecture. It gives them a few designs, and it also gives them like a freemium tool where they can start marketing and or at least get a few signups.
Mhm.
Um, Post Sprint Zero is when we actually start product development. So most of the time, so the focus on launch is just rapid iteration, because most startups are actually they have a few constraints, right? So they have um, a fixed amount of cash, and using that cash, they can do X number of iterations at max. Um, we want to make sure that they're able to do more iterations so that they're able to reach PMF.
Yeah.
We feel like it's a function of the number of iterations that you can make and actually go to market, um, that that helps differentiate the companies that make it versus the ones that don't.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. I think, when you look at like just AI in general, not just talking about business, but that's how, libraries are built, right? That's how the language models are built, is through iterations, and having more and more iterations means a better outcome and a better product. And I think the same thing can be said when it comes to, doing the MVP stages, having more iterations so you know what your customer's really looking for, what problems you're really solving, and where the market's,
Right.
directing you.
Exactly. And I think that that's where again, that's a very interesting role that the founder needs to play,
Hmm.
where they need to constantly, especially during this phase of their journey, they need to be in touch with the consumer or the end user themselves and sort of really try and identify, what do I need to build that makes my business something that this user cannot do their job without? um, and just make sure that those iterations are actually happening without them running out of cash. And those are typically the problems that we see. Companies run out of. I mean, the statistics say that majority of startups, about at least about like I think about 10 to 20% of them, they fail because of team issues, and another 8 to 10% just fail because of tech issues. That's like 30% of startups fail because of just these two issues.
Hmm.
And we want to make sure that we take this reason for failure away.
Mm. Yeah, that makes sense. How are you guys using artificial intelligence and things like that to help in this process?
I think the way that we're using AI is just to increase speed, right? So
Right.
I think the way I look at AI is, I think every software developer needs to start using it. Actually, it's not just related to software development, design. Every designer, product manager, anything to do with, the software development lifecycle, you need to use
Mhm.
AI. Um, but I think what it really helps us do is it helps us turn our service into something that is more convenient. So we're able to do more with AI with the same team size. And the time that's left, we're able to use that better to provide a better experience for the customers that we work with. And that experience could be, you know, um, just making sure that the sprints are planned correctly, or demos are happening correctly, or there is two-way communication, or making sure that we can help with some other things. For example, we can use the additional time that we have to help them design better pitch decks, or create more freemium tools, or redo their website. Or there can be n number of things that we can do to improve the customer experience. So I think AI has really changed the game for us. It's just given us a lot more time that we can use to improve customer experience. And I think services is largely a experiential business.
Mhm.
Um, at the end of the day, if the same customer working with two agencies doing the same thing can have a very different experience.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. When I think about, what makes a service company, I guess, successful is the way that the customer feels at the end of, the engagement. Not necessarily, I mean, the outcome's important, obviously. It's important to have a good product. It's important to have a good outcome. But also, like, if I had two vendors that I'm going back and forth with, and both of them gave me the good product, but one of them made me feel good. about throughout the
Mhm.
process, and engaged
Mhm.
with me more and spend a little bit more time making sure that I fully understood and communicated properly. And like you said, had the sprints planned and had all the things like tidied up. And, it made me
Right.
feel better. I'm going to go back to that vendor over someone who didn't, maybe had it more automated, but didn't quite, make me feel like I was important.
Yeah. And in fact, if you think through any service that you've bought, forget
Mhm.
software development, it's usually the start and the end that, you know, make people remember that service provider. Not so much in the middle. So it's the start is primarily about identifying, hey, is there anything different that these guys are providing? Is there something that makes me want or make this purchase easy? And the end is what you said, like at the end of the engagement, how do I feel? Like, do I feel like these guys have actually done more than what I asked? You know, and those are the differentiators that we're trying to offer. So I think AI has allowed us to actually do that because it's freed up. I wouldn't say it's freed up a lot of time. It has freed up quite a lot of time, but and we're just using that and doing this.
Right. Yeah. You're refocusing your time maybe from, you know, writing more lines of code or doing more unit tests to, focusing on preparing the customer experience.
Yeah, yeah. Or doing some competitor research or trying to identify what's working over there, or like looking at, you know, um, teachers that are working over there, or doing some, data analysis and seeing what's actually like looking at the metrics and seeing what's working, where are the drop-offs, etc. Which um, typically was a separate role, right? Like it was like another person just looking at all of this data. Now we're able to do all of this the same team. And also, I think a lot of engineering time being freed up has led to engineers also to think about product, um, not just from a let me test this to see if this meets the spec kind of way, but also think about it from the user's perspective, saying that why will somebody use this in the first place, or how will somebody land up on this landing page? Like, what's the journey looking like? And those are very important things for the person actually who's building the product to know. And now with all this additional time, we have time to actually do this and think about these user flows, which is super important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's super important too. I can think back to, I used to be a manager of a web and mobile development team. This is more than 10 years ago. And it was for an internet service provider. And we built like the applications that went on the technicians' phones when they went out and did service calls and things like that. And one of the biggest learning experiences and things that made my team really successful was I had them take field trips, as I called them. You would take a field trip and you would get to ride along with the guy in the trucks. You would see how they do their job, not just how we gathered the requirements of how they do the job, but actually how they're using the application that you put together. And we found so many little things that we were able to like tweak and very simple code changes that made significant impacts on the end user experience. And we did the same thing with like the call center group. We would go sit in there and listen to the calls that came in. And although we weren't being frontline support and like solving them, we were hearing, oh, well, in the 2 hours that I was shadowing a call center tech, I saw the same problem that I could have easily fixed in like 10 minutes, and just coming up with ideas and solutions that kind of, like you said, an engineer driving the product development and kind of looking at the ways that we can easily implement things that will solve problems down the road.
The impact that you see with just first principles is exponential. Um, and especially when the people who are building the product um, do the things that you're mentioning, which is something that AI frees them up to do.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. What are some, you know, tools or habits or things like that you think entrepreneurs need to get into to help drive their business and become successful to go from that MVP to PMF that you talked about earlier?
Um, so I think that's a very interesting question. It's also very difficult for founders to do.
Yes.
I think because most of the founders that we work with, well, we're really trying to work with non-tech founders, but you invariably have one or two people in the founding team that do wear a tech hat. Um, and I tell most of the people that we work with that as founders, you don't, there are many things that you need to worry about. Um, but if you work with us, tech should not be one of them. And I think in today's day and market, like a a decent product with a better marketing strategy will win over a very good product but with no marketing strategy.
Yeah.
Um, so I keep telling them that, the focus, especially during the early stages, should be trying to identify um, things that will give you an edge. And whether your go-to market is marketing led, outbound led, product led, doesn't matter. Play to your strengths, identify what your strengths are, identify what will make your product different, and just keep focusing on that, keep iterating. Um, but yeah, I think, as a habit, I think founders need to separate themselves um, from the actual act of engineering and really wear a product hat. I think that's really difficult for them to do. Um, and I think for further to that, especially, I think I'm really talking about people who are in this, early stage, just created something, now trying to reach PMF. They're probably raising money for the first time. And they're going to go through a lot of changes there. But I think they also really need to start enjoying those wins, which are very different from the wins that they would have um, when they were just like writing code or building software. And I think that's again another habit that people need to, especially founders, need to really inculcate change. You know, um, they need to start enjoying those wins.
So, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think it's one of the things that as a founder, you have difficulty enjoying wins because you're always looking at the next thing, right?
Right.
And you're trying to see what the next phase is going to be. How do you recommend someone takes a step back and focuses on that win, and kind of, I know for me, whenever someone almost has to make me step back and celebrate, but when I do, it kind of resets me and resets my focus, and makes the next step a little bit better. How do you recommend someone do that?
It's very difficult. I mean, it's as a founder, you're always thinking about the next thing.
Mm,
And I think most founders, and social media makes it worse. Most founders are trying to chase, that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, or
mm.
whatever that means for them. Um, But I think, you need to sort of rewire yourself or retrain yourself and really try and enjoy like the day to day. You could go back to identifying why you're doing this in the first place. Like, for example, and the highs are great, but you will have lows as well, and those can be really difficult and lonely. I keep trying. I mean, for me, it's always been like, I want to make software development convenient. That's my why, and I really want to help founders achieve some of their ambitious goals. And founders and the clients that we work with, we tell them the same thing: is try and go back to your why, um, and that'll really help, and try and enjoy the daily wins that help you get closer to that.
Yeah, I think going back to your why is extremely important, and just understanding your why, because a lot of times your why is going to change over time. As a product
Sure.
develops and as the business develops, you're going to redefine. I mean, your core why is probably still going to be there, but you're going to kind of define it in a little bit tighter way and start to
Mhm.
understand things in a little bit better detail. And I think having, periods of time where you go back and revisit it and even spend time writing it down, it's important to help people stay focused and stay energized.
I think it's important for a number of reasons. So, I mean, what I did very early on when we started Wednesday was actually write this down exactly like you said. In fact, what I did was I wrote like a whole book. So we call it like the Wednesday playbook.
Yeah.
So if you go to playbook.wednesday.is, it talks about what we do, why we do it, how we do it, everything that we do in this company is available publicly for everyone to view. So it not only keeps you grounded, but it also helps you attract similar people.
Hmm.
So it solves a number of um, problems that you will eventually face. It helps you create a community. It helps you create a tribe. It helps you attract people who think the same, who have the same why. For us, it's always been about craft, right? Like we love the craft of software development or product development, and we look for people who are passionate about it in the same way that we are. And just writing this down, having it publicly available, has allowed us to actually build that small team.
Would you say your playbook is kind of like a culture guide, or is it more than that?
I think it's more than that, but it does serve as a culture guide as well.
Yeah.
But for me, I think the playbook has always been a way for people to know what it's like to work with us, and for customers to know how we do things. So we don't want anyone to have any surprises. And in fact, it's so detailed. It tells customers the services we offer, the stage of each service, what you'll get if you engage in this particular service. Let's say, for example, launch, what you should expect from us, what are the offers available. Everything is publicly available. It's a very different experience from, let's say, another agency versus us, which is, it brings in a lot of transparency. It starts with building trust.
Yeah, absolutely. Ollie, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you kind of enlightening us on the entrepreneurial, mindset that goes behind Wednesday, the things that you guys do, and sharing your playbook with everybody. I'm going to link that too in the show notes at geekleader.com. How else can people connect with you online, learn more about the things that you're doing on Wednesday, and maybe tell us just a brief synopsis of what the future is for Wednesday?
Sure. So, our goal for 2025 is to work with about 50 startups. We are working with 8 already. So if you're a startup founder who's trying to reach PMF, you can reach me at on LinkedIn. My name is Ali, and just search for Wednesday. Or you can also connect with me through our website, which is wednesday.is.
Awesome. I'll link that too in the show notes at geekleader.com so people can go there and click through and find your LinkedIn and the website, wednesday.is. Again, Ollie, thanks so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hope you enjoyed the show. Please go to geekleader.com to learn more about what this guest is up to, click on their links, and connect with them online. I would also greatly appreciate it if you could leave me a rating and review in Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to the show. And make sure you've subscribed if you haven't already. And if you feel so inclined, you can leave me a tip by going to geekleader.com/tip.